The Hope Lodge is not a new concept. The American Cancer Society already operates 31 Hope Lodges across the country. What's so exciting to me is that the American Cancer Society, a national organization, looked throughout the entire western United States to find a site for the Hope Lodge. And they chose Salt Lake City because of its premier cancer treatment centers.
I get up in the morning because I think that I can be part of a team that will make a difference. Not only are we the crossroads of the West, we really are the crossroads of research. This is one of the most sophisticated medical communities in the United States. And the research that is generated here goes back to the patients directly, because when we see that we're doing something well, we like to carry that over to the next generation of patients. The problem with having an excellent product in cancer treatment that we have here in Utah is that it attracts people from all over.
She said you could have a lumpectomy, but you would have to have 6 weeks of radiation, and that's 5 days a week. And I thought, oh, that's nuts. I mean, that's so far for us, back and forth, you know. And I thought if I have the breast removed, I wouldn't have to have anything, but it turned out I did have to have chemo. I've seen so many doctors, I feel almost like a nut.
And do you have your folder with all material? Good.
And I thought, you know, 6 weeks of running down there. It's a long trip if you have to do it every day. And then after I had the treatment, I would get sick. And then that was a long ride home again.
People come down, receive a treatment, a radiation, a chemo, whatever, and drive hundreds of miles back home, and we'll do that. Angela's, radiation protocol was 6 weeks, 5 times a week for 6 weeks.
It financially devastates people.
I'm Zeke Dumke, and I was the caregiver for my wife Angela as she went through her breast cancer journey.
He's still a great caregiver. I've watched what the caregiver goes through, and the caregiver needs that support. And so I think that that's something that's really important, and that's what the Hope Lodge will provide, is that support for the caregiver as well as the patient.
This is my sister with 2 of her granddaughters. She made those crazy glasses, and she called them her crazy glasses. And when things would start to get too intense or too serious or too sad, she'd put those glasses on and then make everybody laugh. I lost my sister Janet DeMarco to breast cancer last year. The doctors had expressed that they were very concerned about her immune system, that it was so compromised because of the repeated chemo. So when we got to the hotel room, the first thing that we would do is sanitize everything. We'd get out the wipes. We would wipe down every surface that you could possibly imagine, the phones, the doorknobs, the sink handles. We always brought her own sheets and her own pillows. They didn't have a refrigerator, so we had an ice chest, and we were always filling it with ice. And we had our sleeping bags. We were laying on the floor. We were camped out in this little hotel room. It wasn't convenient, and it was expensive, but it was so worth it for her to have the quality of care that she was receiving in Salt Lake City.
When you think cancer, you think, okay, chemotherapy, surgery, but all these other factors, like long commutes, extra costs, staying in hotels, finding a place for your caregivers to stay while you're in the hospital is something that never really crosses our mind when we get diagnosed. I was concerned with surviving and making it through all of this. The last thing on my mind was figuring out a commuting schedule or reserving a last-minute hotel. Since the day of my diagnosis, I've undergone 27 rounds of chemotherapy, and most recently in April, a bone marrow transplant with my brother's healthy stem cells. When my friend who had stayed at the Hope Lodge first told me about it, it almost sounded too good to be true. He would talk about, how the Hope Lodge was one of the most powerful and inspiring and moving experiences he'd ever had, and that in some ways it had been the highlight of his cancer experience. I remember first arriving to the Hope Lodge here, and I had no idea what to expect. I was so exhausted. And the first thing we saw was this waterfall in the lobby, and we both kind of stopped and said, really? Like, this can't be the right place. This is far too nice. And we went upstairs, and I remember feeling so relieved as I sort of sank down into my bed and kind of breathed a sigh of relief. I mean, New York is called the concrete jungle, but this place feels like a sanctuary. Cancer patients going through chemotherapy love ice cream because it soothes your throat. So we would sit here and watch really bad romantic comedies and eat a lot of ice cream. It didn't just feel like I was in a hotel, it felt like I was stepping into a supportive community that wanted to do everything they possibly could to make a difference in this difficult time. One of the things that amazed me while I was staying at the Hope Lodge was just how many cancer patients were cycling through. It's so clear that there's a need for a place like a Hope Lodge, and an immediate need. And I actually wonder what people did when there wasn't a Hope Lodge here in New York, how people survived, how they got the proper treatment, where they stayed, and how they were able to afford it. It's so exciting for me to think that there may be a Hope Lodge in Salt Lake City. As someone who's going through chemotherapy right now, the Hope Lodge has been a crucial part of my recovery and my ability to continue receiving treatment.
Where we heal is just as important as how we heal.
Next time you drive by any of the hospitals, you'll see RVs, and I guarantee in those RVs, our families.
Give hope a home.
Please give hope a home.
Give hope a home.